have a great guest for us today, kind of breaking the norm of how we usually go. We are going all the way outside the lines today, helping student athletes in the classroom, and now we're going to help student athletes on the other side of life after they have finished playing. We have James Grogan, President and CEO of 5-Star Staffing, here joining us to give student athletes tips on how to set the next phase of their life and get it on course sooner rather than later. James, thanks for joining us.
Erick, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you having me in the studio today. You know, it's funny. Years ago, I used to work in this building and never thought that I'd be in one of these studios as a guest. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, James, go ahead and talk to us about 5-Star Staffing and the services that you provide student athletes as they wind down their careers in college.
Yeah, absolutely. So 5-Star Hiring is a staffing service that I started about a year ago. Actually, just went live on September 15th. So we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary. I'm very proud that we're still here, coming up on a year. And essentially what we do is we offer student athletes an opportunity to make that transition to the next phase of their life, like you talked about. And we pair them with local employers who are going to see value in the same six critical skills that I identify that most student athletes possess. Like you talked about your 6 points that you just went over. I think every student athlete, by virtue of their experience, is going to be very strong in their work ethic, their time management, their teamwork, their communication skills, their motivation, and their resiliency. And all of these things, in one way or another, lead to a very valuable employee. Whether it be the work ethic that you just talked about, and it's displayed through their time as a student athlete. You need to be have the work ethic to essentially hold 2 full-time jobs, right? When you're a student athlete, your coursework has to get done, and has to get done to a higher standard than most students in order to keep your playing eligibility, while also working countless hours towards your sport, not only in season but out of season with conditioning and the lifting programs and things like that. So the work ethic that it takes to produce those type of results are the numbers speak for themselves. Only 7% of high school athletes make it to that level. So the drive and determination that it takes to possess that is unmatched, and clearly that's a skill set that an employer would value. The time management piece is something that you just started to touch on a little bit. To be able to kind of break down your day to almost the minute, so that basically from your 6 a.m. practice or your 6 a.m. lift to your classes, to your conditioning, to your study hall, and then maybe back to another practice or another film. Your whole day is accounted for, and you have to manage that precisely, or you won't be able to remain eligible to play your sport. And then the teamwork piece. You hear that the big catchphrase in a lot of offices is culture, right? Mm-hmm. They want to build a culture. They want an employee who's going to get along with others, who can effectively communicate across various departments, and things of that nature. And in order to do so, you have to be a good teammate, and not just a good teammate, a leader. Some of the things you talked about in the classroom, to me, that's a leader. And coach, who you had on, talked about it as well. Sit in the front of the class, ask questions, hold yourself and your classmates or teammates accountable. That's stuff that leaders do, and that's really teamwork, and that's what builds culture. Yeah. At any university, at any program that you're a part of, they're going to have their own culture, and you're going to either buy into it, or and in some cases help to develop it. Yeah. And that's something that you can really take to any organization and strengthen that organization, just by being a leader and promoting their culture. And your communication skills are obviously, you have to have the confidence to speak to your professors, to speak to your coaches, and all of that builds your communication skills as well, which is going to help you interview better, which is going to help you talk to your superiors and your CEO and those type of things. and lead you to, achieve upward mobility in many positions faster than most as well. I can go on and get into them in a little bit more detail, or did you want to kind of make this more of a Q&A?
You just keep going about your 6 points.
Okay.
You hit them all yet?
No, I did not. Motivation and resilience. I can just kind of tie those two into one. So again, motivation, like most student athletes, if you were a 4-year student athlete at the collegiate level, you set a goal to do that probably as early as middle school, right? And again, the numbers speak for themselves. Only 7% of high school athletes make that transition. So the motivation that it takes to get there, that's somebody who missed parties, missed time with their friends, missed their social lives to some degree to stay on task, right? And that's the same person who in the corporate world, when they have a job to do, they're going to be able to get that done, regardless of what's going on around them. And same kind of the thing with resiliency as well. Part of the resiliency piece, I think, is also the ability to perform under duress, whether it be resiliency in the form of failure or in the resiliency in the form of things didn't go as planned, or things aren't going as planned, and you have to veer the course and set a new direction to where you want to go. Athletes most times are able to do that quickly and effectively because they've been trained to do so. I mean, you've ran practices, you've participated in practices. How often does the game not go according to plan? And
always.
Oftentimes early on in the game, right? So you're forced to adapt and you're forced to adjust. And not only that, when you do it confidently and effectively, again, back to the leadership piece, those around you can see, there's no panic, there's resolve, and we're just, we're going to move forward and we're going to get it done. Now I say that, and there are the 6 pieces that I identify, but much like you just laid out your 5 points for student athletes, and it seemed to be that was a little bit geared maybe towards more the high school or junior high level, because I know that's a lot of your target audience. My target audience, the collegiate student athlete, they've all done that, right? You did it. The current student athletes have all done it. What I've found is they don't all know that they've done it. They really don't understand the magnitude of what they did. They're so engulfed in their sport and making that a priority that they're doing these other things without realizing that they've done it. And it comes a time when your sport is over and it's time to move on to that next phase. I call it the aha moment, right? The student athlete has this aha moment where like, oh, what am I going to do, right? They don't know what they're going to do. So when I have these conversations with student athletes, a lot of it is helping them to identify the value in what they've just accomplished. And that's one small piece of the mentorship side. I can also guide them through how to take that and make that your elevator pitch, right? When how to get an interview,
right?
How to excel in the interview,
right?
And how to land that job based upon the skills that you've acquired. That I just need to remind you that you've acquired. They may not always know that.
Yeah. So that's all awesome stuff. So how does it work? So you accept student athletes who come to you looking for career advice, or come to you looking for a job?
It's usually that they're looking for a job.
Right.
The advice piece is just part of it.
Okay.
Now, there have been a couple conversations I've had with student athletes who saw what I do. They saw me online, they saw the website, and they weren't sure what they had going on, what they wanted to do. So they would reach out, and if I didn't have the opportunity that they're looking for, I'll still have those conversations with them, still be willing to guide and mentor and help them through the process of finding a job, whether it be something that I can place them in or something that they need to find on their own if I don't have that particular profession or position that they're looking for.
Okay. So a student athlete comes to you and they take up your services. What do you do initially to help them secure a job?
Well, the first, let's address the first piece of it that most student athletes are going to want to know, right? And schools as well. If there's administrators, coaches, ADs, those kind of things listening, right. The service is free on that side, on the student athlete side, on the candidate side, on the school side. The compensation piece is done by the employer. So there's no fee or no charge to the student athlete. You know, a student athlete comes to me looking for a job. I would let them know what positions that I currently have available that I think's a good fit for them. And that's a big piece for me. You know, when I got into this a year ago, I had been doing staffing at my old job for about 3 years or so. And I primarily only had one role that I could place a student athlete in. And while it's very gratifying to place somebody in any job, but particularly somebody's first job out of school to really launch and begin to grow and develop their career, it is very rewarding, but I only had one opportunity. So one of the reasons I wanted to kind of go out on my own was to broaden the number of opportunities that I can present. So I would never look to steer somebody just for the purpose of getting me a placement. I'm going to look to put somebody in a position that's best for them.
Yeah, that was my next question. How do you talk to student athletes about finding, you know, what is best for them, where they will see themselves being successful, and do you kind of go over their, you know, their abilities, likes and interests before you talk to them about different opportunities?
I will, yes. I'll find out, one, if they know specifically what they're looking for.
Based on their major? Based on their
major. Or, you know, I actually talked to a guy today who graduated with one major and then wanted to kind of veer from that and get into something a little bit different. I think he was an education major, but wanted to get more into the corporate world, more into the business world. So he figured it out on his own. And oftentimes, as you know, 22, 23 years old, a lot of us don't know what they want to do. So I think student athletes, and part of this is, you know, some of the jobs that I have, and these are employers who, again, employers see the value, so they reach out to me because they know what kind of candidate I'm going to bring to them. A lot of it ends up being sales. And there are, you know, student athletes who tend to just naturally do well in sales because of the competitiveness to it. They're self-motivated. You know, they're resilient because sales is very difficult, especially early on. So there are a lot of the roles that I have, and I don't mind, you know, telling a student athlete that this is what I have. And I think it's good for someone who doesn't know what they want to do.
Right.
And again, it's not me telling them it's good because it's good for me. You know, I think something like 90% of Fortune 500 CEOs started in sales. So it's a good way to learn the business world, the corporate world, because you typically learn the process from front to back. So whatever industry you're in, you're you know, if you want to be good at it or great at it, you know, you need to know the whole industry from soup to nuts.
Yep.
So it's going to put you in a position not only to earn money, right, which everybody wants to do, quickly, and oftentimes have that ability to earn sooner rather than later in a sales role. Whereas, you know, in a back end position, you may just be you're going to get merit increases or things like that. This is going to be directly correlated to your performance, which athletes, you know, to compare it to playing time and things like that. And again, it back to my original point though, it teaches you the whole industry. So if you decide that sales is for me, and I'm making a lot of money in this and I'm very happy, then you can continue down that path. But if you decide, you know, it's really not for me, it's high stressful, you know, it's very metrics driven, you have to meet these numbers daily, weekly, monthly, and you want to transition into another part or area of the business, you have that foundation, because to be a successful salesman, you need to learn the entirety of the business.
Okay. Now, 5-star staffing, 5-star hiring.
5-star hiring.
5-star hiring. Now, where does your passion for working with student athletes come from? Because as a hiring firm, you could work with, you know, people across industries, broad range of backgrounds. Well, why are you passionate about student athletes?
Excellent question. Thank you for asking that. Because there are a couple of reasons. One, I saw a need,
Yeah.
right? Like you talked about, staffing agencies can work with a myriad of different professions,
Right.
and they do. Like you'll see a staffing agency for engineers, sales,
Right.
medical sales, whatever the case may be, marketing. They all have their niche. There is no niche for student athletes, and when I started doing this, we talked about the mentorship side, and a lot of student athletes kind of don't know where they want to go.
Right.
But where it initially started is a good friend of mine, Jimmy Riley, the new head coach at Philadelphia University,
Okay.
now Jefferson, taking over for Herb McGee. Throughout the years, as he would have players graduate, Jimmy was great at this. He really cares about his players. He would help them, find opportunities. And at my old company, I was there for so long that whatever the major was, I was oftentimes able to find them a landing spot within the organization.
Okay.
And I noticed that they were all good employees. That they all had those values that I talked about earlier. And that translates to success. So my initial thought was that there's a whole industry here, if you want to call student athletes an industry, or really a candidate pool that can bring value to organizations. And then I moved into staffing, this side of my business, and I start talking to various hiring managers and things like that, whether it be within my company or just at different events that I would go to. And a lot of hiring managers see that same value. They seek student athletes. Now, if you're at an IBM or Comcast or something like that, and you post a job, you put that job on Indeed, you may want to hire a student athlete, but you don't have time to go through 500 resumes to find the one little blurb at the bottom for the kid who played basketball at St. Joe's.
Right.
So what I'm really here to do is bring to employers what they're looking for.
Okay. Now, how do you talk to student athletes about their marketability and making their presentation to potential employers and making that presentation strong and showing really why they would be the best fit for an opportunity?
Right, and that's part of kind of what I talked about, the elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And helping a student athlete kind of identify what separates them, and it's really those things that I talked about earlier. When the things that student athletes do just aren't asked of their peers. Their peers go to class and then their day's over.
Yeah.
Where a student athlete, their day's just starting. So there's so much that they're able to do that separates them from their peers, and that really needs to be their elevator pitch.
Okay.
Whether it be their communication skills, their leadership skills, like I talked about, the resiliency, the ability to perform under duress. There's so many things that student athletes are capable of.
Yeah.
That not to say that a non-student athlete isn't capable of it, but they're not doing it on a day in and day out basis.
Okay.
And to me, the two main ones are my first two. The work ethic and time management are huge.
Okay. I work with student athletes on a daily basis, and student athletes who are really in the career hunt. And if I have a student athlete come to me and say, "Hey, Mr. Woods, I am really struggling with my interview skills. I have no idea what to do in an interview, how to be successful. I'm looking for someone to help me with that." And I say, "Hey, I have 5-star hiring. How would you be able to help them with the interview process?"
Well, the first thing I can do is I actually have a full tool on my website,
Okay.
5starhiring.net. If you go to the last tab, it's the more, I think it's just called more, and then there's a subsection with the drop down.
Okay.
It's around the web, and there's just a couple. The very first one is what I'm talking about. It's called Going Pro, and it's a full-on guide on how to prepare for the job search, and then from the job search to your elevator pitch, from your elevator pitch to your interview skills. It lists a whole bunch of sample questions, what the desired answer is to those questions, what they're looking for out of an answer. And any student athlete can go to my website and look at that resource and check that out. It's a very, very valuable tool.
Nice. That's big time, because a lot of kids, have no clue how to interview, what employers are looking for, things that'll make them stand out. So it's great that you have that option, and great that you have those resources. From the employer side, talk to us about, some things they say when they give you a job, right? And some of the things that they're looking for. Name some of the top things, in the top 3 things that employers are looking for someone who they would definitely hire.
The top 3 things that they're looking for that I get are, I think I've already touched on it, but it's work ethic far and away is number 1. The second is resiliency. Because let's face it, early on in any role, there's going to be challenges, right? And you see a lot of entry-level jobs have high turnover rate, just because it's people can't accept the fact that they're not performing well, or it's not what they anticipated or what they thought they would be. You find a lot of recent grads think that, I graduated now. Where's my corner office and my $80,000 a year job, right? And when they don't get that right away, when they don't get that instant gratification, they tend to start looking for something else, where they know, a student athlete is going to want to go in and be coachable. Coachable is another big one too. They're going to want to be coachable, kind of put their roots in and somewhere where they're going to be for a long time. And that's something that I preach to, like if I'm going over interview prep with a candidate, the big analogy that I like to use that I think translates is the preparation work that student athletes do, from off-season lifts to practice, all of those things, that could be half a year right there between those 2 things.
Yeah. And
they're all taking place long before you ever step foot on a court or on a field, but it's laying the foundation for the future success. And I think that that's something that's really required in any early role, is to understand that what you're doing now may not necessarily give you that instant gratification, but it will pay dividends down the line. And I think student athletes really understand that because they've lived it essentially their whole lives.
Yeah, that's all good stuff, man. Can you talk about any programming that you do outside of just steering kids toward a job? Do you have internship opportunities, or do you have any shadowing opportunities that student athletes can take advantage of when they get a chance to kind of go see a job firsthand, build relationships with the potential employers? Do you have anything like that?
I don't, unfortunately. At this time, I did, in any business early on, you find out kind of what you thought it was going to be isn't necessarily maybe always what it is or what it can be, or you just see kind of new opportunities. And one of the things that I found in this first year is that what the student athlete is looking for.
Yeah.
Right. I kind of went into it with what the employer was looking for, and looking to deliver the student athlete as what the employer is looking for. But the internship opportunity is a huge one, obviously, that student athletes are looking for. And while I can't provide that at this time, it's something that I always keep my eye on to look to secure those opportunities. But what I will say is, again, to the interview piece and to the resume piece, a lot of student athletes, because of the time demands, don't get the opportunity to do that internship. Right. What I like to tell the employee to the student athlete, and again, this is part of the mentorship side of it and the interview prep side of it. Your student athlete experience is your internship, and if conveyed properly to an interviewer, you can demonstrate that not only is it as valuable as most internships, it may even supersede it.
Wow, that's
because you're getting real life valuable transferable skill sets as a student athlete, and again, the things that I just covered, that are going to directly impact immediately that organization. Whereas, there's a lot of real internships that, let's face it, those employers are just giving it's busy work. File this, run this, do that, and it's not real valuable information or skills that they're learning and acquiring that they can bring to an organization. Now, I'm not saying that's not the case all the time, but there are internships where it's not providing the value that it should.
Nice. That's all good, man. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to share about 5-Star Hiring, and let everybody know where they can find you?
Yeah, so the second part I'll address first. They can find me at 5starhiring.net. I'm on Instagram at 5-Star Hiring. I'm on Twitter at 5-Star Hiring, and I'm on LinkedIn at 5-Star Hiring. I would suggest all student athletes build a LinkedIn profile. I think that's critical to get ahead of where you want to be. It's never too early, even to your middle school and high school, maybe not middle school, but your high school students, especially juniors and seniors, should start to be doing that as well. Build a LinkedIn profile, start networking. You talked about earlier, investing in school.
Yeah.
This is the same thing, investing in your network. And a LinkedIn is a big resource for that. You're on every other social media platform. You should be on that as well. So that's where you can find me. I guess that's the last thing as well that I would tell the student athletes is, networking. You should always be networking. My partner says always.
Always.
Always. Nice.